Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We have a question here from YouTube user Carol Mosier, 7745, a longtime viewer of the channel. How you doing, Carol? She asks, what about testifying when you are pro se? Pro se, of course, means to represent yourself, when you are representing yourself. How do you question yourself? Or how do you object to questions when you are being cross-examined by opposing counsel? Carol, that is a tremendously good question, and I have a disclosure to make. I don't know. At least I didn't, because I've never seen it happen. Because, if you stop and think about it, it makes sense. I represent plaintiffs. Plaintiffs are generally the folks who would end up being pro se, representing themselves if they can't find an attorney. So if I'm appearing on a case, it stands to reason the plaintiff, who I represent, would then not be pro se. They would be represented by counsel and so not pro se. So I have never seen this happen. But I have asked around, and I found attorneys who have had to deal with this, and primarily was defense attorneys, because defense attorneys will occasionally have a case against a pro se litigant, such as some of the folks on this channel who are pro se litigants. And what I learned was fascinating. So the pro se litigant gets up on the stand, is sworn in, and then asks their question into the record. And I gather there could be other ways that this happens. This is the most popular way. The pro se litigant gets up, gets sworn in, asks their question into the record, pauses for a moment, presumably for opposing counsel to potentially object if they so wish, and then answers the question that they just asked themselves on the record. Now, the reality of this does play out a little differently. Often judges will get a little frustrated and might question the person directly themselves, as you will often see judges do when they question a witness directly. It is what it is. Is that ideal? No. I'd really rather see the attorneys or the pro se litigant asking the questions. But I certainly understand why judges do it, and it happens fairly commonly. And if a pro se litigant's having a tough time, I could see the judge, for the sake of the record and keeping things efficient and moving along, posing a question, because judges hear a lot of questions get posed in court. They're fairly good at posing questions that would not be objected to, because they're the ones who rule on what is and is not objectionable. So they know in their courtroom how they're going to apply those rules of evidence and the various findings they might give on objections. So if they're asking the question, I suspect the question will be crafted in a way that's going to be good to go, right? Now, the cross-examination goes about the same. Opposing counsel asks the pro se litigant who's on the stand a question. And then before the pro se litigant answers that question, the pro se litigant can stop and think and decide whether she or he wants to object. If they object, they raise their objection. They might say, objection, Your Honor, hearsay. Great. You wait for the judge. Judge might take argument. Judge might say, hey, tell me why it's hearsay. Why do you think it's hearsay? Pro se litigant would say, I think it's hearsay because of X, Y, and Z. Great. Judge turns to opposing counsel, defense counsel in this scenario, and says, hey, that's pretty compelling. Pro se litigant says it's hearsay. Why is it not? Is there an exception to the rule? Because there are many exceptions to the hearsay rule. And generally, if you're asking for hearsay, you're probably trying to get it in the record under one of those exceptions. And so opposing counsel, defense counsel, can argue, it's not hearsay, judge, because of exception 3, blah, 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 right? Great. Judge will then issue a decision. I agree with the pro se litigant, the plaintiff here. It is hearsay. The question does not need to be answered. Or, I agree with the defense counsel. The defendant's counsel, I think that the exception applies here, and you can go ahead and answer the question pro se litigant. And if the judge directs you not to answer, you do not answer. And if the judge directs you to answer, then you answer the question. Sincerely and honestly. But don't give too much, right? Like, keep it tight. When you're being cross-examined, answer the question with as little information as you can. And then on your direct, if you want to bring something out, bring it out in a comfortable situation where you can't be ambushed, where you're not at a disadvantage. Cross-examination is inherently it's a hostile environment, right? So like making points and getting your point across in cross-examination, don't do it. If something comes up in cross-examination that you then want to bring out, great. When defense counsel, defendant's counsel rests and sits, ask the judge, I'd like a redirect. Generally speaking, the judge will grant that. And you'll be then able to, as a pro se litigant, say, now, pro se litigant, I'd like to ask you about blah, 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 blah. And then you get a chance to answer that question that you just asked yourself, which is bizarre, but you will answer saying the things that you wanted to say. Is that complex and strange? Will everyone watching it feel weird and funny? Sure, but it is apparently how it's often done. So, Carol, thank you for asking a question that I didn't know the answer to, because I learned something, and boy, is that weird. That's weird, right? That would be a weird thing to witness. I don't know how I feel about that. That seems bizarre, but I don't know how else you would do it. Not really. I mean, are you just going to have the person talking to the record? That doesn't really make sense. That's not really going to comply with how we do things. So, good luck, everybody. Go hire an attorney, because pro se litigation is very, very difficult. I guess quickly, I'll add my disclaimers about pro se litigation. Listen, there are some people I know on this channel who have done amazing jobs as pro se litigants. People have posted. The Fight Employment Discrimination channel, the YouTube channel, that person was pro se, I believe, for most of her case, and she did an amazing job. But I think notably, she is a literal rocket scientist for NASA. So, very capable human being, right? Who did also, I believe, have an attorney for the last stage of her case. I believe the trial, right? So, cannot stress enough how rare it is for a pro se litigant to do well representing themselves. I would largely, and have on many occasions, characterized representing yourself in employment discrimination or employment sexual harassment case to be an expression of self-loathing and self-harm. It is that simple. I understand there are not enough employment attorneys in the world. I understand that, and I decry that every day, and I have videos on this channel trying to figure out how to get more employment attorneys into the world, even though it will cause me to make less money, hypothetically. I don't actually think it will, but it could, right? But all that aside, if you can obtain counsel, mediocre counsel will generally be better than representing yourself. Just a reality of what's going on here. It's a reality of litigation, experience, and comfort in the courtroom, and just knowing what's going on and having some level of understanding of what's going on is going to serve you very, very well, and that is something even a mediocre attorney can provide. Listen, your attorney might show up in a leisure suit with platform shoes and look ridiculous. Look like when you see that attorney, you think, oh God, I'm going to lose. But that horror show of an attorney might still be better, will likely still be better just by virtue of experience than representing yourself. Usually. Most often. Almost always. I'm sorry to say it. And Carol, I know you're doing a good job. Not aiming this at you. Anyways, if this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. Share our channel so we can grow. Take care, everybody.